So Gary, absolute pleasure to meet you this week. Absolute pleasure to chat.
Likewise.
It's been really fascinating. What really gripped me is there are so many instances where there's a problem and the solution is X-ray, and we don't realize what they are. Sometimes the customer doesn't realize what they are. Give me a couple of examples of where you found a solution to a quality problem, a fraud problem, some other kind of problem that
Right.
X-ray has just managed to fill that complex gap.
Well, in the kind of business that we have, we get a lot of different inquiries. We get cold calls, people call, they want to bring a painting, let's say, into X-ray. And we have the facility not only to manufacture and sell systems, we also perform services. So we never know what's going to come in the door. One of the most interesting one was the 40 millimeter shell that the Army, Picatinny Arsenal, brought in. And they had because of a problem with the fill level in the shell, for the propellant, they had a fatal accident because there wasn't enough propellant in the mortar shell. So they had us X-ray it. We X-rayed it, and they were looking to see the level of the propellant. It was overfill or underfill. And in the process, we could easily determine levels of the propellant, but we also found there's a cup that the propellant sits in. And they had multiple cups, bent cups, missing cups, and they never knew this existed. And so they had quite a consultation in our office about it. They were really surprised. They were just thinking about fill levels. And anyway, as a result, they had to change their manufacturing process, but they ended up buying two systems from us. One we shipped out to Camp Pendleton here in California, and the other one is at Crane Army Depot in Indiana.
So do they do 100% inspection now? Or do
Yes, they corrected the problem, but they had thousands and thousands of belts for the helicopters or the ground mortars, 48 linked mortar shells, and they all had to be X-rayed. So the system that we sent to Camp Pendleton, they ended up sending to different bases where they had all these mortar shells stored. There were millions of them, actually. So we solved a huge problem that they had. And it was a rather simple automated system, just a conveyor. And they had two operators. In those days, we couldn't do it automatically. So they had two operators and two separate screens viewing the linked belts. And they went by rather slow by an image intensifier. So that was...
That's a great case, because I think that does two things. It identifies that they've come to you with a problem, X-rays the solution. There was a unknown in there as well as the known unknown, so they learned something they didn't learn before. But actually what's probably most important is you actually taught them to improve the manufacturing process. So you not only made the end product better, you actually made the process more efficient.
Because the Army didn't manufacture them. They had a third party manufacturing them for them. And they were able to, through the X-ray initially that we did, just what you said, they corrected the problem in the manufacturing, and that problem went away.
Yeah, and you were able to check all their stock and weed out what was going to cause the next accident. So that's a great example where you get a huge value add out of that discovery. What about in the kind of in a more commercial environment? What kind of solutions do people ask for there?
It varies. We have, like I said, so many different applications that come into us, and most of them are custom.
Yeah.
They're not solved by a simple
put it in here
cabinet X-ray, so they end up actually everything seems to start with a simple X-ray, a static X-ray in a cabinet system. It might be with a conventional X-ray source, or it could be a microfocus source. We did have a cassette, a medical cassette that was used for prostate cancer. And in that cassette, there was a carrier, which was the drug, a needle, a wipe for sterilizing the needle, they were very concerned because they had instances where the cassettes went into the operating room, the doctor's ready to do the operation, and there's something missing.
Yeah.
And it disrupts everything.
Yeah, that's not okay.
So we x-rayed them and end up making a small conveyorized system that we installed in Chicago at the manufacturer. And it didn't eliminate the problem, but it took the problem away, that it never got out of the building.
Yeah.
We rejected what was to be rejected, and the good ones went off to the hospitals or wherever they went. So,
Yeah.
but
So
everything, most everything we do is on a commercial level.
Yeah.
But again, it all comes back down to the fact that it's problem solving,
Yeah.
and that's what
you do.
That's what we like to do.
Yeah, that's where the fun is. And when you are doing that problem solving, what are the kind of gates? Is it can I get an image? Can I see through this so I can see that? Is it can I fit the object in? Is it the shape of the object? When you first hear about a problem, when you first see a problem, what makes you think that's going to be easy? That's going to be really hard and maybe more fun?
Because we can do anything.
Okay, that's the perfect answer.
No, we make inquiries either by email or often.
Yeah.
It's still, people do use the phone. And we'll ask pertinent questions about the size of the object, the weight of the object, what's it made of,
Yeah, the materials.
and what are they trying to see? If it could be a simple thing like a casting, and they're looking for shrinkage in the manufacturing or porosity in the process, and we know from that little information that we can do it.
Yeah.
And the question then that you bring up is, what do we use? Do we use a conventional system? What is their standard? Do we need to use a microfocus? A lot of times, just a conventional static X-ray is sufficient to make an analysis of what you're looking at.
Yeah.
But quite often, it may be a piece of tungsten, let's say in a weld, and they want to see how big it really is and enlarge it. And this is where microfocus comes in, because we can provide huge geometric images with no distortion whatsoever. So we kind of pick the source to what the customer requires. We don't give them more than they need, but never give them less than they need.
Yeah, I think one of the interesting areas that you mentioned before is art, but also artifacts. The idea that you're in a museum, you can put something that clearly can't be destructively tested into a cabinet, and you can see what's in there, where it was made, how it was made, maybe with a painting, what was underneath the painting. That's really exciting. That must be a lot of fun for you. What have you discovered there that you thought, wow, this is what gets me out of bed every day?
Well, a couple things. One, we often don't know what we discovered. That's this don't know what you know, because many times we'll do radiographic inspection, and the customer, be it a museum or even possibly a university or a private collector, they won't tell us what they see when they see the image.
Yeah.
They say, oh, that's great, but we don't know what they're really looking for.
You don't know what they're really thinking.
Yeah, they often don't tell us. An anecdotal story on art, which we're in fact, I just called my engineer during lunch, and I didn't know they're going to the Guggenheim next week for 2 days to x-ray these huge wall paintings. And it's really nice because we get to do really unusual and interesting things beyond the normal, NDT. But there was a gentleman named Pascal Cote, and he's known all over the art world as the person that took the most radiographs of the Mona Lisa. And he contacted me. I can't even tell you how he found out who we were. And he wanted to come and visit. He came over from Paris, brought a briefcase, and in it he had pieces of wood with various samples of paint. And all these paints had different pigments on them. Mm-hmm. He had quite a few of them. And we x-rayed him using CR, computed radiography. Mm-hmm. And each of the paints has a different density due to the pigment. and like your whites are much more denser than your, say, your yellows or whatever. But anyway, we ran all these studies for him and had no idea why we were doing it. But he knew what he was doing.
Yeah.
And he was very happy with the results. And we thought that was the end of it.
Yeah.
It wasn't very interesting to us. And then he said, oh, by the way, I have a painting that I would like you to x-ray. And he brought out a small, almost 8 by 10 Picasso.
Wow.
And Picasso was 15 years old. And it was a self-portrait of Picasso with an instrument. And it wasn't really a very clear painting, but you could see it clear enough. So we x-rayed it on CR, and lo and behold, underneath of it, just what you mentioned, was a picture, as we found out, of Picasso's mother.
Wow.
And when Picasso painted this, he was 15 years old.
Yeah.
And in those days, it was hard to get certain canvases, a lot of them painted on wood because they couldn't get canvas. So anyway, he painted over this very nice picture of his mother.
Yep.
And in the painting itself, there were pieces of paint missing.
Right.
That was missing out of the portrait. And there were no repairs made on it anywhere.
Yeah.
So, and that's another thing they always look for. It's not so much a painting under a painting. That's wonderful when they discover. But usually what's underneath is no good.
Yeah.
But this was especially interesting because it also was in the, still remained in the Picasso family.
Yeah.
And it was very high value. It was several $1 million, we were told. And we weren't allowed to advertise it, and we wanted to because here we took pictures, and we had pictures of it, and we had the radiographs, but because it remained in the family, it was kept a secret until not that long ago, and we still can't. We can show it. I showed it to Bill, but we can't put it on a website or anything like that.
Yeah,
but this is the kind of experiences that I've been in this business for longer than I want to say.
Yeah.
But it's always, the reason I'm still in it is because I love it.
Well, it's discovery, isn't it? But every one of those experiences is valuable when the next person comes through the door. When the next person comes through the door with a specific problem, you're going through this mental Rolodex and saying, hey, we did something like that before, let's try this.
Yeah, your database just clicks in.
Yeah.
It comes from all those years of experience. And we also have a lot of images that we were able to save. And often we may want to show a customer if they have something similar, we can show them something we did very similar.
Yeah.
And they may even know the customer.
Yeah.
And say, wow, they have the same problem we had.
Yeah.
So you never know what you're going to get
until you get it
in the X-ray business.
Absolutely. Last question. You talk a lot about people bringing stuff in and you X-raying it and you learning from it. It doesn't always happen that way. Sometimes you're out, like in the Guggenheim, but also maybe in a hole in the ground, X-raying a joint or doing something like that. That presents a whole bunch of different challenges because it's kind of the on-location model of what you do.
It does, but on the other hand, I've been in this for so long. I started out as a technician taking X-rays with isotopes. We didn't have an X-ray machine. And I did field work. I did pipelines in freezing cold and down in the ground. And so years of experience, all that, you retain it.
Yeah.
So it doesn't matter who comes in. I can relate to it somehow.
Yeah.
Unless it's really something totally unusual.
Yeah.
But, but most of the time,
there's an experience you can tap into.
It really is. And I think as a result, we've sold, a lot of systems and solved a lot of problems. And we have a lot of huge database of really very satisfied customers, and which a lot of our business is due to referrals from customers like that.
Yeah, that's it. That's a huge position to have in the market, a huge database, a reputation, I think, which is the most important thing. Do you ever say no when someone says, can we X-ray this? Is your first thought, yes, how are we going to do it?
Never. We always try.
Yeah.
We always try.
Give it a shot.
If somebody wanted to X-ray a tank or something, I'd say no. But, but basically, we kind of say we can X-ray anything, or at least we'll try.
Yeah.
That's
yeah.
what we do.
Gary, that's awesome. Thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.